Emmeline dismisses me after my lessons, and I begin to head immediately back to my room. I've just turned a corner when I notice Sir Alcaster standing before me scowling. Oh, not you again. What do you want?
Watch where you're going, child.
I quickly avert my gaze, not wanting a confrontation. He always looks at me so strangely, almost like he can see into my mind. Or is trying to. My apologies, Sir Alcaster. Sir Alcaster nods his head at me stiffly before walking off. What was that noise I just made?
You are pardoned, princess.
I turn to stare after him, but he's already turned the corner. My blood becomes cold. Was that just a slip of the tongue? But how else could he know that I am the princess? Is it possible that he is cursed? No, somehow that does not seem right. But if he does not have the Fairytale Curse, could he be the witch that Laura warned me about? What reason would he have for unveiling his identity then? Unless he just wants to intimidate me further. It occurs to me that Fritz still remembers who I am. Did he tell his father about me? Now I'm even more confused about whom I should trust. You can always trust this sweet boy, and if you don't trust the sweet boy, you can trust the sweet bunny.
Lucette?
I jump when I hear Rod call me. His expression slowly creases with something that looks like worry.
You're pale. Did something happen?
Would he believe me if I told him? I'm pretty sure he would. Yeah, we can trust Rod. Sir Alcaster knows I am the princess. Do you think he is the witch Laura was talking about? Oh, sorry. Sir Alcaster knows I am the princess. Do you think he is the witch Laura was talking about? I whisper the words to him, and he responds by raising his eyebrows, looking surprised.
What makes you say that? This isn't just because of the standoffish way he acts, is it?
You don't believe me.
I never said that I didn't. It's just that we can't just blindly accuse anyone without any real proof.
Rod stares at me for a few moments, then closes his eyes, his eyebrows slightly furrowed with thought.
Sir Fitzgerald also remembers who you are.
I do not want him to be suspicious of Fritz, but I don't think blindly trusting him would be right either, given these circumstances.
You need to stay vigilant around him. If anything happens, you can come talk to me about it.
You're worried about me? Rod averts his gaze from me. Of course he is. Look at this crystal.
Of course I am.
Wow, you're actually being honest. Ugh. What? Rod glares at Sebi before pinching his cheek. Sebi's cheeks are so bruised, he just can't even feel the pinches anymore.
Anyway, I must leave now. I have a dance to practice for.
Dance? But you already know how to dance. What do you have left to practice? Rod does not answer and only walks away. I decide to follow after him.
Why did you follow me?
I wanted to see you practice. To be honest, I want to see him dance. I already know that Emmeline is very clumsy when it comes to dancing, but outside of the one practice with Emmeline, I have never seen Rod dance. Emmeline always glows on his behalf, but I have yet to witness Rod's supposed talent with my own eyes. Our dance together was so short I barely had any time to judge him.
I do not practice with an audience.
Why?
It is my preference.
Rod is easily embarrassed. Rod pinches one of Sebi's cheeks, glowering. Sorry! Rod reluctantly releases the bunny with a sigh. I notice you've been talking more lately, Sebi. Oh, that's because Rod here has been saying things that contradict what he thinks or feels. Sebi makes a sound of defeat as Rod once again pinches one of his cheeks. Aw, look at that smile! Look at the character development of his face. Rod stares at me with wide eyes, and I stare back, beginning to panic. What is wrong?
You smiled again.
I put a hand to my mouth, flushing. I was smiling again? I never even noticed. It was a pretty smile, Princess. Right, Rod? Rod quickly turns away, cheeks slightly pink.
I need to practice now, so I would appreciate you leaving.
He did not even command me to leave. What a surprise.
Emmeline said you were a really good dancer. I want to see it with my own eyes.
Should I tease him?
I'm gonna save. I want to tease him.
Come on, I'll challenge you to a dance-off.
Dance-off.
I am sure that I am a better dancer than you. The scowl on Rod's face deepens. I almost smirk. Maybe he is reluctant to show me, but Rod is also full of pride. He is more likely to show me if I pose a challenge. Precisely, girl.
You didn't even answer the question. And are you underestimating my dancing?
The others may have forgotten, but you still remember, do you not? I am a princess and was taught by the kingdom's best instructor. I say the words with pride, and I notice Rod's lips twitch in response. It actually makes me feel accomplished to get under Rod's skin when he is usually the one getting under mine.
Having the best instructor does not automatically make you the best dancer. I am pretty confident with my own skills.
Say what you want, but I will refuse to believe you without any proof. I still say that I am a better dancer than you are. Yes! Yes! Challenge for the win! Rod steps forward and pulls me suddenly into his arms, taking me by surprise. He looks at me, clearly determined.
Fine then, you'll have your proof. I'll make you swallow those words with this dance.
We shall see. Rod starts leading the dance. He glides us into the imaginary rhythm of a waltz. Even without the music, I am able to count the steps in my head as I follow his lead. This is different from that short dance we showed Emmeline. Rod's movements are graceful, his touch gentle as he leads me to an underarm twirl. Yes. Hi, Sebby. Let's look at that. Aww. So cute. So cute. When I come to face him once again, I notice the gentle way he stares at me. The usual hardness of his expression is gone, melted into something relaxed. I find myself staring back at him, looking into his eyes. Perhaps Rod does have some gentleness to him. Our gaze does not break as he twirls me.
Oh! Whoa!
Sebby, is that you?
You have beautiful eyes.
Rod's eyes widen as soon as mine do. He abruptly lets go of my hands and steps back. And the moment's gone. No, it was so beautiful. I can only stare at him, my face warm.
It wasn't me this time. That was more than just a thought, I swear.
Rod says nothing, though his cheeks continue to darken with embarrassment. Oh my. Rod and I turn to look at Emmeline, who is hovering by the door. Sorry you had to see that, Emmeline.
Excuse me.
Rod quickly walks through the doorway and out into the hallway, leaving Emmeline and I alone in the room. So much blush going on, oh my goodness. What just happened? That was a wonderful dance, Lucette. You were watching? I only just saw the last few minutes. But you know, the two of you really did look like a couple. It was sweet. A couple? Oh, you're blushing. I put a hand to my cheek and turn away with a scowl. I am not. Besides, whatever just happened was embarrassing. Do you like Rod? I stare at her. I do not. Also, you are forgetting that I am a maid who could not be with the prince even if I wanted to. He is grumpy and cold. And even though we are not blood related, he is still my stepbrother. If only Emmeline realized how crazy her words were in light of the truth. They brought back the stepbrother thing. I approve of this. I approve of this. We need to address this, though. Emmeline suddenly looks starry-eyed as she giggles at me. Love knows no boundaries, dear Lucette. Besides, he seems to like you. Your brother hates me. Rod can be a contradiction sometimes. Sometimes he says the opposite of what he feels. It's only when you get to know him as well as I do that you realize what his truths are. I cannot help but think of Sebby, who always speaks Rod's thoughts aloud when they are contradictory. He was always so mean to Viorica when we were young. He would always bully her for being a crybaby, even though he cried far more often. But then I realized that he treated her more special than he did anyone else. Back then I knew that he liked her. I thought that one day the two of them might even grow to love each other, but...
Emmeline lets out a long sigh as she directs her attention out the window. Well, he did fall in love with her, till I came around and distracted him.
His attitude toward her has changed ever since he was cursed. Then they grew even more distant when Viorica found a lover.
Is that the reason why you've been going to the toy shop with Prince Rod? Because you want to bring them back together? Emmeline nods.
The three of us were best friends. The Three Musketeers. It's not the same without Rod. I keep on asking him what's wrong, but he refuses to tell me. He's always been stubborn, but it's not like him to keep secrets. It's really frustrating because I have no idea what I should do to help him.
I thought he was just being stubborn with me, but apparently no amount of prodding, even from his own family, will make him budge. Why is he being so difficult? I hope you do not mind me asking, but what do you know about his curse? Emmeline stares at me for a few moments before nodding.
You're my friend, Lucette, and I know that I can confide in you.
I know that sometimes I am not trusting enough, but I think Emmeline is still far too trusting.
We only know that he has the mermaid's curse. I've read the story so many times, hoping that I can figure out some way to break his curse.
I've been reading it, trying to figure out what exactly he needs to work on to break it too. I just can't figure it out for the life of me. I think back and realize that I had actually read the beginning of The Little Mermaid a long time ago, but I did not have the chance to finish it because I was caught by Mother. The Little Mermaid is about a mermaid who trades her voice for legs, right?
Yes, she does it so she can be with her prince. Rod's voice was taken away, but I'm sure that he was given something in exchange. I've heard that the curses are derived from the original tales, but that they are twisted in some way to fit the format of a curse.
I nod slowly, thoughtful. I have a strong feeling that Rod's curse is related to Viorica, but I cannot draw the connection. But still, Viorica might be the key to understanding his curse. If Rod will not divulge anything, the next best chance we have of understanding his curse might be going through Viorica. Do we have a plan? Chapter 7. Be careful what you wish for. How droll. Today is the first time that I am leaving the palace on a day off. Usually I choose to stay inside. Whereas the other servants always have to leave to go home, I never see any reason to leave since this has always been my home. And the Marchant has never been home. Besides, it is not as if I want to return. Not after that conversation we all shared last time. But what about Mr. Broom? Thus, I have spent most of my days asking questions about Mother's reign, inquiring when and where I can. The opinions do not surprise me. Alrighty then.
I was so scared of her. One wrong move and she'd have you thrown in prison. The townsfolk would always wait for her to pass by before leaving their houses. She was a tyrant. The kingdom is a better place now that she's gone.
There is no reason for them to lie to me. The more I hear, the more my old life makes sense to me. I now know why the king never seemed to love Mother, and why the people hated her. And the reason people looked at me with such fear. However, it has been months since I have been glared at in public. If there is one good thing that this curse did for me, it is that it allows me to travel around town without being noticed. As Viorica's shop comes into view, my thoughts shift to the reason I have left the palace in the first place. If Rod will not tell me anything, I will have to ask Viorica. She must be related in some way to his curse. I pause outside the door to the toy shop. I push the door open. Welcome! The moment she sees me, her expression becomes confused. Oh, you are the princess's maid. Lucette, was it? I nod at her. You've never come in here alone before. What can I help you with? I wanted to ask you something. It is about Prince Rod. Prince Rod? Did something happen to him? Is he okay? He's fine. Oh. Then what is it you would like to ask? I just wanted to know if you knew anything about Prince Rod's sudden muteness. Viorica stares at me for a few moments before she shakes her head. I only know that it happened soon after I met my fiancé, Desmond. What reason do you have for asking?
Well, I try to think of a plausible explanation for this, and I immediately consider Emmeline. Viorica is Emmeline's best friend. Surely she would be willing to help if she knew I was doing this for Emmeline. Prince Rod has been very quiet recently. Princess Emmeline has been worried sick about him, but he refuses to say anything, even to her. I have been trying to gather information that might be helpful in discerning the cause. I stare at her expectantly, hoping that my gaze holds nothing but determination. Finally, Viorica smiles.
She's lucky to have a dedicated friend like you.
I'm still not accustomed to the fact that Emmeline considers me a friend. Poor Lucette.
Before she became the princess, I was her first confidant. We were like sisters. But now that she's living in the castle, we no longer have the luxury of spending so much time together. I worry about her constantly. Even around me, Em always tended to keep her problems to herself at first. She doesn't like to bother other people with them.
It is hard not to agree. With the way Emmeline was always smiling before, I never thought she had any problems in her life. It was only recently that I discovered that she was hiding all her loneliness and pain behind a smile.
It's a relief that she's befriended someone who cares so much about her. I don't know if I can be much help, but I'll tell you what I know if it will help Emmeline. To start with, I'm not exactly sure how everything changed, but it all happened so suddenly. All I know is that after the night I met Desmond, our relationship changed. At first he still smiled, but recently he's been avoiding me.
What happened between the two of you the night you met your fiancé?
Nothing. Rod and I did not meet on that day.
Prince Rod wasn't there?
No, but soon after what happened that night, Rod grew distant.
What happened? It was a stormy night. It was a Tuesday night.
It was a stormy night, and I was heading back home. I took the route by the riverbank because it was the shortest route. It was foolish of me. The road was slippery and full of mud. I lost my footing and fell into the water. The waves were strong, and I was certain I was going to drown. I don't remember what happened in the darkness of that water, only that when I woke up, my head was in Desmond's lap. That was the first time we met, but not the last. He carried me home, and he came by every day as I was recovering. And then he came to visit me even after I had recovered. I tried not to get my hopes up too much, because what could this nobleman see in me, a mere commoner? But I still ended up falling in love with him. You have no idea how happy I was when he said he loved me too. It was a dream come true. Of course, every girl dreams of marrying a prince. It was in all of the fairy tales that I read as a child.
None of that was at all related to Rod. How does this relate to his curse?
Hugely. I want to start speculating, but I want Viorica to finish her story first before I start speculating.
You said your relationship with Prince Rod changed after that night. What happened?
I told Em and Rod about Desmond soon after the incident. Em was happy that the two of us had fallen in love, but Rod didn't say much of anything. That's when I noticed he started growing distant, and when I realized that he had also lost his voice. He still won't tell me anything, but I figured that he was...
Her voice fades, but I know that she is referring to the curse. So Rod lost his voice shortly after Viorica met Desmond. The mermaid's curse must have something to do with the tale. The little mermaid traded her voice for legs so that she could be with her prince. But that night, the only person who found their Prince Charming was Viorica. Rod's curse must have something to do with Desmond and Viorica. He became distant with her after finding out about Desmond. Why? Then there was the fact that he still spoke to Viorica, even if he was distant. It was only when he found out about their wedding that he became so cold. I frown as I try to organize my thoughts. Okay, we're probably not going to get more out of her, but I'm thinking in the tale, the Little Mermaid rescued the prince and dragged him to shore where a priestess was, and she left him with her, and he woke up to see her and fell in love with her there. And she ended up being a secret princess who he ended up marrying instead of Little Mermaid. I find it very suspicious that she was actually
It was muddy, and she fell into the water. Did Rod save her? Did Rod save her and left her on the shore where Desmond found her and then waited to see if she was okay? I wonder if he traded his voice for an actual, maybe not an actual tail, but good swimming ability so he could save her from drowning? But then she didn't end up falling in love with him. She fell in love with this other guy. Maybe that's how it happened. But I still don't know how he's going to fix his curse. Oh, still so many questions. How did it get to be this late? I'm so sorry, Lucette, but I have to close the shop now. Sorry for the story. I know it has nothing to do with Rod, but it was after that incident that he began to act strangely. I don't think I was much help, but I shake my head. You have told me what you could. Viorica walks me to the door, opening it so that the both of us can step out onto the street together. I really hope that you're able to help Emmeline and Rod. I hope so too. Did you see Ophelia the other day? I catch sight of two noble women sitting on a bench together, not too far away from the toy shop. They are referring to Ophelia without her title. How disrespectful. Who would have thought a peasant like her could almost look like royalty? But her dress. As the queen, she ought to be wearing silks rather than satin. I do not know why, but I bristle at their comments. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but the fact that they are speaking so bluntly in public means that they have little worry of being overheard. I'm still not sure what the king saw in her. Well, you know what they say about ladies lacking natural beauty. Her talents must lie in other, more persuasive areas. She must be very persuasive indeed, if the king saw it worthwhile to marry her. Oh, yuck! As the two women laugh, I feel something hot begin to burn in my stomach. Viorica takes in a sharp breath beside me. Since I became a maid in the palace, Ophelia has been nothing but kind to me, a mere servant. She has all the right to flaunt her status and title, yet she remains humble. I now know that this is why everyone at the palace loves her. Common women like her can only keep a man's attention for so long. I start walking toward them without thinking. Is this good deed number 2 coming up? Lucette, I wouldn't... You have no right to say those things about the queen. The two women are clearly surprised at my interruption. Both of them glare at me. And you have no right to eavesdrop on us. Eavesdropping? Anyone could have heard you. Their mouths fall open. One of the women looks at me for a long time, then sneers suddenly as if something has occurred to her. I thought you looked familiar. You're the Crown Princess's personal maid. I see you always following her around when she's in town. This is none of your business, girl. Why do you care so much for our opinions? Ah, perhaps it's because the girl idolizes the queen, thinks she might also go from rags to riches. What? Oh, you do have a point. They stand and advance toward me. Do you want the prince for yourself, girl? If a commoner can become the queen, it's not too difficult to imagine yourself as a princess, is it? How foolish. You're better off dreaming smaller dreams, girl. The irritation in my chest blazes into full-on anger. Is this what Ophelia has been dealing with for the past year? She is being treated so cruelly when she has done nothing but love the king. And I also ridiculed her just like this. I forced myself to look at the cruel women as I moved my hand to the pendant hanging around my neck. I was just as cruel as them. I barely feel Viorica's hand as she rested against my shoulder. Lucette, let it go. Her Majesty wouldn't want you to do this. But I cannot just let these two women talk about Ophelia like this. I pull away from Viorica and stand firm. The queen has a good heart. She is far more noble than either of you could ever hope to be. I think back on the times I was cruel to her. Ophelia could have easily reprimanded me for my behavior. She had that right as my stepmother, yet she has been nothing but kind to me. Ophelia never got angry at me, even despite my treatment toward her and her family. She has always treated others with kindness, even when they are cruel to her. Judging from the bitterness in your accusations, it seems like you are jealous of her. How pathetic. Oof! The other woman marches toward me, and my free hand instinctively moves to hold her hand just before her palm reaches my cheek. Ugh! I will not tolerate any insults toward the queen. A soft light emanates from the pendant, and I can only stare at it in shock. Yes, good deed number 2. I got another good deed? By defending Ophelia? The woman snatches her hand away. How dare a peasant like you talk that way to us? Have you no manners? I could ask you the same. What happened to yours? How dare you? Don't you know who we are, girl? I will see you pay for your impertinence. Our words have far more weight than yours ever will. I will go to the king myself to tell him about how rude you were.
I can pass on that message myself.
Yeah, I knew it was gonna be you, my boo! Woo! I turn and see Rod walking toward us, his expression cold. The 2 noble women hastily curtsy. Your Highness! The noble women turn pale as Rod's eyes fall on them. Actually, we have an important dinner engagement. Yes, we do. The 2 noble women curtsy before quickly departing. What are you doing here without your guards?
What trouble have you gotten yourself into now?
I'm gonna save, but I'm not going to tell him. I'm not gonna tell him how terrible those women were. He doesn't need to hear it. And I don't need to be like, I did a good deed. I defended your mother. Praise me, please. I'm not going to tell him. I'm sorry. Unless a crystal does not appear, in which case I'm like, reload. It is nothing.
If you refuse to tell me what happened, I will have to assume that the noble women were telling the truth about you.
Lucette has done nothing wrong. In fact, I think Lucette only did what you or Emmeline would have done had you heard the awful things those women were saying about your mother.
What?
She stood up for the queen when she didn't have to.
Then why didn't you just say so?
Would you have believed me? Rod drops his gaze from mine.
You never gave me a chance to believe you, did you?
He would have believed me? How am I to know that? Rod is like a walking contradiction. Rod is like a walking contradiction. Bleh. Did it. Rod glances up again, this time to look at Viorica.
We shouldn't keep you from returning home, Viorica. I'll take Lucette back to the palace.
Viorica's eyes narrow and she looks ready to pull something. She looks ready to pull something? To say something. But Rod has already reached out for my hand to pull me along behind him. When we are out of sight of Viorica's shop, Rod stops, releasing my hand as he turns to face me.
Did you really think I would refuse to believe you if you told me the truth?
You never liked me. You have no reason to believe me. Rod runs a hand through his hair.
I told you that I would help you break your curse, right? That offer alone should be enough for you to know that I...
Rod turns away, suddenly looking embarrassed. Ah, yes! This all worked out wonderfully. I was getting worried. I'm like, the crystal isn't showing up, the crystal isn't showing up. Oh, barf, barf.
That I don't dislike you anymore.
You're expecting me to just assume that? How would I know unless you made that absolutely clear?
Well, I'm making it clear now.
I understand.
Anyway, thank you for standing up for my mother. It seems like you don't require my assistance in breaking your curse after all.
He gestures to my necklace.
Congratulations on your second good deed, Lucette.
Suddenly tongue-tied, I find myself looking everywhere but at Rod. When I've once again gathered my senses, I turn to the road. My eyes narrow as I recognize the path we are on. This is not the way back to the palace.
No, it isn't. We're going to the Marchen.
Why?
Because I was on my way there before I was forced to take a detour because someone was drawing attention to herself.
What? But Rod ignores me and we walk the rest of the way to the Marchen in silence. Bleh. Waltz is the only person in the reception room when we enter.
Prince Rod. Princess. It's a little late for the two of you to be here. I had meant to be here earlier. Is Lady Parfait here?
Waltz nods.
I'll go get her. Wait here.
As soon as Waltz leaves us alone, Rod turns to me, his expression rigid. Rod steps closer and grabs my shoulders. What?
I wasn't able to say so earlier because we were out in public, but you should know just how much danger you're in now, and yet you thought it was okay to go around on your own?
It was my day off today. It is not unreasonable for me to want time for myself.
Time to yourself. Don't you understand the meaning of be careful? Why would you do something as foolish as going out into town alone?
I cannot help but bristle at his tone. Why are you so angry?
Because you're...
Rod trails off and looks away.
Because you're family.
So you're finally acknowledging me as family? I notice his cheeks turning red.
To be honest, you're less of a family member and more just... important.
Important?
Because of all that you do for Emmeline. You're important to my sister.
He looks uncomfortable as he says the words, and I cannot help but marvel at his embarrassment. Why is he so embarrassed? 'Cause he can't tell you that he loves you as more than a sister, which sounds so weird. Somebody fix this, please. But Rod changes the topic as he turns away from me.
Why were you with Viorica? I can only think of one reason you'd speak to her. My curse. You thought you'd find out about my curse through her.
I can only assume that your curse has something to do with Viorica. I look up when Rod says something, then stare at the curious sight before me. He has taken Sebi off his shoulder and is holding the doll in his hands away from his face. The two seem to be engaged in some silent conversation. Then gently, Sebi speaks words I can hear.
This is the right thing to do. You need to let her help you, Rod.
Rod bites down on his lower lip before briefly closing his eyes. Eventually, he returns Sebi to his usual spot on his shoulder and turns to me.
Fine. You're stubborn and you're not going to quit investigating unless I tell you, are you? You're right. Viorica is the reason I was cursed.
Oh my goodness, we're actually getting this now? Rod sits down on the settee and lets out a heavy sigh. His eyes are far away as he speaks to me.
I was in love with Viorica, but I wasn't brave enough to tell her. I just followed her around like some kind of puppy. One day Viorica hadn't come home, and it was raining very heavily, so I went out to look for her. I found her walking along the bank of the river. I called out to her to tell her to be careful, but I don't think she ever heard me. She slipped, and...
Rod swallows. He clenches one of his hands into a fist.
She fell into the river. I dived in after her. I somehow managed to get both of us onto the riverbank, but it didn't look like Viorica was breathing. I didn't know what to do. I started panicking. I ran off to try and find help, but I couldn't find anyone in the storm. When I returned, she was gone. I rushed to her house and a doctor was already there tending to her, along with...
Desmond. Rod's gaze is vacant as he nods.
When Viorica began to fall in love with Desmond, I felt helpless.
Did you not tell her that you were the one that saved her?
Why would I? Viorica was so happy believing that she and Desmond were fated to be together. I couldn't do that to her.
But surely if you told her... Rod interrupts me.
I want the people I love to be happy. I don't care if their happiness causes me pain. I'd rather bear that alone instead of bringing down those around me.
Oh, you are like Little Mermaid. My chest aches as I watch Rod's face. I never would have guessed that Rod would be so... selfless. That's the key. Does he have to be selfish, then?
But that didn't stop me from thinking that I could still make her love me instead. I decided to become what I thought Viorica wanted most, the Prince Charming of the fairy tales she so adored. And so I asked a witch to turn me into one. She stole my voice in exchange. Only then did I realize that she had inflicted the Fairytale Curse upon me, the mermaid's curse. The next day, the king turned up at our house, proclaiming that he'd been looking for my mother for years, and that he'd never stopped loving her. When the king married my mother, I became a prince. It was just as the witch promised. But it didn't matter. I didn't see it when I made the deal with the witch, but I couldn't be blind to it forever. Desmond and Viorica really do love each other. They make each other happy. Nothing I can do will ever change that.
Rod, Prince Rod? Oh! Parfait pauses in her tracks when she sees me. Have I interrupted something?
No.
Rod moves over to Parfait, but he stops to glance back at me.
I won't be long.
Parfait looks at Rod and then at me, her face puzzled, but she does not say a word as Rod and her leave the room.